Sure.
Hey, I just want to thank Kim for setting this Zoom presentation up. Welcome everyone. Thank you for spending your Friday night with us. We truly appreciate it. Although here in Kent County, it was snowing all day today, so there's not much going on outside. For those of you who don't know, we are the Kent branch, Ontario Ancestors. We're glad you joined us. Our presentations are recorded and are available on our YouTube channel. We have over 200 branch members, and a lot of them don't live in the area. So quite often when we do have an in-person presentation, we record it because those people aren't able to attend. And then we put it on our YouTube channel later, and they have the availability to go and watch and, you know, feel that they're part of the branch as well. And often people say they missed something during the live presentation, so they're able to go and rewatch it. So as I mentioned, this is a webinar hosted by the Ontario Ancestors. They've been around for, you know, over 50 years preserving and promoting family history. There's over 30 branches all across Ontario, so it doesn't matter where you live or even where your ancestors might have lived, there's likely to be a branch close to you that would have material and assistance to you to help with your genealogical studies. Ontario Ancestors is also the largest genealogical society in Canada, so that's saying a lot. They have a fantastic website, which the link is there. Also a very active Facebook group, and you can follow them on Twitter. So they have a lot of stuff happening. One thing that every year the Society holds its annual conference and family history show. Unfortunately, this year, due to the shutdown from the virus, the actual in-person conference had to be canceled. There was a lot of really quick shuffling and a lot of decisions were made, and they are going to try to do a virtual conference. It's still the same date as the original one was, so June 6th and 7th. Be sure to mark your calendar. There's going to be some information coming out very soon. They're still working on all the details. So that's why if you follow along on any of the Facebook groups or websites, there hasn't been a lot of information about details yet, because actually this weekend I think they're finalizing everything, and then they're going to start promoting. So it's a really good way to still interact and do some learning, but it's a great way to support the society as well. So like I say, mark that on your calendar, and there'll be a lot more information coming out soon. So as I mentioned, there's those 30 branches all across Ontario, while here in Kent branch, Kent County, we have our own branch as well. And we've been, you know, helping people with their family history for over 35 years. I think it's actually going on 40 years, long before my time. But general family history, mentoring and assistance. We have many educational programs like this. We have a DNA study group that gets together. And we have a fantastic resource library that's actually housed on the second floor of the Chatham-Kent main public library. We're open Wednesday to Saturday, 1 to 5. So if you haven't had a chance to pop up there yet, please do so once the pandemic is over and we're back open. We have tons and tons of information there, mainly local, you know, Kent County related, but we have a lot of information about the surrounding areas too, of Essex County, Lambton County, and then just general research, you know, research materials for, you know, all of Ontario, all of Canada, basically all across the world. Okay. We have a branch website, which the link is there. We have a very, very active Facebook group. So right now, while we're all, you know, self-isolating, our Facebook group has become a very good tool for reaching out and staying in contact with other folks who have, you know, Kent County connections or just interested in family history in general. So if you are on Facebook and not part of our group, definitely find us, ask to join, we'll let you in. And if you're not a Facebook user, this might be a good time for you to consider, you know, starting yourself an account. It's free, so it's a great tool to use for family history. And also, as always, any questions or comments or suggestions, feel free to email us at the email listed below. So tonight's presentation, 100 years of the IODE in Kent County. Our speaker is Sandra Smith. Sandra grew up on her family farm near Simcoe. She moved to Chatham and she graduated from CCI and then St. Joseph's Hospital Nursing School, and then went on to Western University to get her nursing education and degree. She had a nursing career in Chatham, London, and Toronto in pediatric nursing, infection control, and home care support with the Red Cross. She is heavily involved in many levels of the community, primary and health care, the church, and the IODE. She's very heavily involved as well in the IODE at the variety of levels. She's been involved in the local level, provincial level, and even the national. She lives on her husband's farm. She has a daughter and a son and 2 grandsons. And she has a strong belief in family, especially supporting children, youth, and the community. Her philosophy or her goal is working together to make Canada better. And I think that is why she is so passionate about sharing her information with us tonight. So Sandra, if you're ready, you can say hi to everybody, and I'll flip the PowerPoint over.
Hello, everybody.
I'll let you get started.
I'm here to talk, of course, about Captain Garnet Bracken, but I wanted to lead you through the interrelationships that the primary chapters are created in Canada. Captain Garnet Bracken IODE is on Facebook and linked to IODE Canada National Office at www.iodecanada.ca and www.iodeontario.ca websites. These websites give, in fact, you can just put in iode.ca and you will get the information. All the programs and projects nationally and provincially and locally have links to all the chapters in specific regions across Canada. IODE, formerly Imperial Order Daughters of the Empire and Children of the Empire, became a premier Canadian women's volunteer organization through an Act of Parliament incorporated by Special Act of the Dominion of Canada, 7-8 George V, 1917. Today, the corporation is governed by the Not-for-Profit Charities Act and has a registered charitable number, of which all property, real and personal, belongs to the whole organization and not specifically to any chapter, executive, or member. National, provincial, municipal, and primary chapters across Canada share responsible care of the mission of the organization through representatives, regionally as councillors to each body by election representing the members of their geographic region. The 100 years comes in with the beginning of IODE, which really began in 1900 by Margaret Polson Murray in Montreal. She was known as Mrs. Clark Murray. And a little sort of tidbit, all members up to the 80s, 1980s and 90s were known by their husband's names, and she was important because she gathered a group of women volunteers together to support and promote patriotic Canadians who were seeing service in the South African War. And of course, this went on to both the First and the Second World War and beyond. The first chapters began formally in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And I should point out that the primary chapter, of which we are one in our area, are the most important link. They sit at the top of the pyramid for IODE structure, and they are the most important part of the structure. The one that began in Fredericton, New Brunswick, expanded rapidly throughout Canada. Significantly, this was at a time that women did not have the vote, could not sit on the court as a judge or justice or as MPs or MPPs until 1929, when the famous Five went to the Privy Council in Britain and had Canadian women declared persons under the law. And that would be a subject for another topic, which is a wonderful story of 5 women who were very courageous. And I should point out, Emily Murphy was she spearheaded this campaign to get women declared persons under the law. She was in Chatham at Holy Trinity Church. Her husband was the rector, and there is a historical marker on the grounds of Holy Trinity that describes the history of Emily Murphy and her campaign to get women declared persons under the law. I love that story because it's one of great courage and innovation for women in Canada. Number 2, logos. Cindy? The logos, coat of arms, the member's badge, and mission statement. As you see on the left, there is a symbol of the badge that we wear as a member. And on the right is the coat of arms, which was just granted 4 years ago by the Royal Heraldry in England. And they created the design. And of course, the 2 lions are female lions. And again, they are holding on to the significant badge of membership in IODE. The Queen is our patron, with resolutions of loyalty pledged each year, in addition to honorary patrons who are the Governor General of Canada and the Lieutenant Governors of the provinces. In our case in Ontario, the Lieutenant Governor is the Honorable Elizabeth Dowdeswell. Order of Canada and Order of Ontario. I might point out too that a prominent IODE member who was Pauline McGibbon, she was from Sarnia, Ontario, and she was an IODE member and very active at all levels of IODE, was a provincial chapter president, but notably was the first female Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, of anywhere in Canada. The mission statement. The mission of IODE, this is the mission that we live for and that we focus on in the tenets of our chapter projects and fundraising and support. The mission of IODE, which is the Canadian Women's Charitable Organization, is to improve the quality of life for children, youth, and those in need through educational, social service, and citizenship programs. The logo is the corporate logo. A corporate seal is protected and held in trust by the National Chapter of Canada, IODE. IODE Captain Garnet Bracken. Chatham-Kent originally had 17 chapters. Many were in Chatham, and also in Wallaceburg, Tilbury, Ridgetown, and Dresden for Kent County. It was customary to name chapters for Kent servicemen and women who lost their lives during world wars. Permission had to be given by their families to use the name, which was then placed on a charter with the names of the new members forming the chapter. The charters are granted and held by the national chapter. Therefore, the names of Major George Smith, and some people in the Genealogical Society may recall some of the names that are prominent in this group. Major George Smith, Mary T. Bray, Elizabeth S. Sharp, Lieutenant Patrick Wilson, Randolph Churchill, who was not from Chatham-Kent, but father of Sir Winston Churchill. Lieutenant Dick Crawford, Flying Officer Austin Wright, to name a few, adding to Captain Garnet Bracken, our chapter. Many of their biographies are on the Gathering of Heroes website, and I believe that Garnet Argenti gave a presentation to the Genealogical Society on the Gathering of Heroes. Books, medals, and memorabilia are held in trust at the Chatham-Kent Museum. I might point out that one of the pictures that we have of Captain Garnet Bracken was a full-length picture, and Joan T.N. Clement used to joke that she had Captain Garnet Bracken under her bed. It was too large to be stored in other places. Chapters were also named after regiments, such as Kent Regiment Chapter here, and it's the oldest chapter in Chatham-Kent. Legion chapter in Wallsburg, the 48th Highlanders at Fort York in Toronto. Place names also were chosen for historical significance, such as the former Kent chapter in Ridgetown, Confederation chapter in Ridgetown, which is still active. If a chapter chooses a royal name, they must get permission from the Queen. Today, a new chapter in Toronto honors Nicola Goddard, who was killed, the first female officer who was killed in Afghanistan. In Kent, of 17 chapters, Kent Regiment Chatham, Catherine McVeigh Dresden, Confederation Ridgetown, and Captain Garnet Bracken chapters remain active. In perspective, there are fewer in the Greater Toronto area than we have here, where in the peak of IODE history membership across Canada, there were more than 40,000 members. Today, there are less than 5,000, with the greater membership in Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. This year is the 100th anniversary of IODE Ontario, Nova Scotia, and Alberta. Significant influences. I'm just mentioning a few things that were many years ago, and for a number of years, the women in IODE groups in Canada were much more courageous politically and used to constantly send briefs to Parliament about, and they were very passionate about issues that were close to their hearts regarding in their mission. The first one I have cited is, and this is a trust gift that was given to the development of the International Peace Garden. And as many of you know, the Peace Garden is on the border between Manitoba and North Dakota. And they gave a substantial trust gift, raising money, and every year we still donate money to the International Peace Garden. The quote on the gates are, "We two nations dedicate this garden, and as long as men shall live, we will not take arms against one another." The gates and the music pavilion were given by IODE. And it's important to know too that North Dakota donated 800 acres and Manitoba donated 1,500 acres, and they were jointly developed and cared for. Every year in September, they have an annual meeting, and the Manitoba IODE members attend that meeting. In addition, a brief was sent to Parliament to advocate the continuation of the CBC as a public, non-commercial, high-caliber broadcasting system for Canadians. Additionally, a brief recommending that a Council for Arts, Letters, and Sciences be created, which is the Canada Council for the Arts today, as a foundation funded by the government. IODE were among the first 6 women on the Royal Commission for the Status of Women. In Ontario, we established genetic counseling clinics through the Children's Hospital in London and the clinics in Sudbury. In other words, all we did was pay for specialists to attend clinics in Northern Ontario to do counseling for genetic conditions and to counsel parents. And in World War II, in 1 week, IOD members raised $100,000 to buy a Bolingbroke bomber. And that bomber is at the Canadian War Museum and is almost completely restored by IODE funds. Snack pack for schools and nursing stations in Labrador, along with Labrador bursaries for students, War Memorial PhD scholarships, sponsorship of students at the National Ballet School, and National Youth Orchestra are continuing programs of the national chapter supported by all the primary chapters across Canada. The life of the chapter. Cindy was great in lightening up the old paper. All our papers are quite fragile and darkened with age. This is the first charter for Captain Garnet Bracken. It started as a junior charter, 1943. We know from notes that the formation was earlier in the 1930s until the formal charter was given. Junior chapters were very popular and were for ages 10 to 18. So our first charter was a junior chapter. Vera Armstrong, who some of you may know from skating, figure skating in Chatham, Kent, wrote that she was at CCI and Bess Bracken, Garnet's sister and director of the Glee Club, organized the club. And when asked to join, Vera asked her friends, who was Barb Glenn Coulthard, and the Glenn in there would be Dr. Glenn's daughter, and Catherine Campbell McKinnon. "What is that?" she said. They said, "It is a girls' club and we're going to have lots of fun. I was into having fun, so count me in." Hence the motto for the chapter was play up, and play the game. In 1952, they became a primary chapter. Prophetically, the charter number was 1918, which is the year that Captain Garnet Bracken was killed in action. The charter members, I've listed some of the names in the next slide, and some may recognize older names from early history of Chatham, and they are on the on that slide. And I won't read them all off, but there are some ones that we still remember. The Parks, the Cowles, Gordons, Reeds, the Campbells, Goodfellow, Browns, Craig, Kerrs, Mann, McGeorge, Newkirks, Reynolds, etc. And in 1952, again, there's a group of names that are familiar for this area: Shermans, Boos, Duttons, Batten, Rose, Horn, Rankins, Ruby Kyle, of course, Kyle Drive. We all remember there used to be an orchard and a farm there, and Ruby was an author. She wrote a couple of books. And Ann Martin and Marge Arnold. The Arnolds had a gift shop and china shop on Grand Avenue across from Tepperman's many years ago. And her daughter-in-law was a later member of our chapter. Captain Garnet Bracken. Captain Garnet Bracken, who was Gan, G-A-N to his friends, was the son of James and Sarah Bracken. He was born in 1885 in Chatham. He was 5 foot 11 inches tall, fair, blue eyes, light brown hair. He was a member and sang in the choir of St. Andrew's Church, which used to be St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church on William Street and then became the United Church. His father was of Irish ancestry and was the principal of the Forest Street School, which later became the Q School. Garnet, along with his brother Robert, a clever lawyer, sister Mary Jack of Wallsburg, and Bessie, a music teacher at CCI, were all raised in an atmosphere of schools, music, and politics. The family lived at 309 Wellington Street West, which today is owned and has been restored by a young family. Garnet enlisted in October 1915 in the 91st Battalion as second in command with Colonel P.K. Morley, also from Chatham. He transferred to the 186th Battalion in 1917, promoted to captain and went to England as a trainer, reverted his rank to lieutenant so he could be posted to France in August of 1917. He was cited in General Haig's dispatches for conspicuous service at Passchendaele in 1917. August 1918 was the first day of the Battle of Arras. He was instantly killed, leading his platoon in the work of clearing the village of Gumapi. He was 33 years old. He was awarded the General Service Medal and the Medal for Service in France. His medals were discovered by an antique dealer in London in an old gramophone and were returned to Chatham. Our chapter donated the medals and his pictures to the Chatham Kent Museum. Colonel Morley said he was handsome, an excellent soldier with tremendous personality. He was the most popular and nicest junior officer I had the pleasure of serving with. We are proud to be named after Captain Garnet Bracken. Fundraisers and activities of the chapter. Support of local community is the focus with student awards, music, and these are the older ones. I listed two groups here, but a lot of the earlier ones we still support. Support of local community is the focus with student awards, music festivals, camp programs, YMCA, Big Sisters and Brothers, Women's Center, food banks, and breakfast programs in schools. Palliative care, hospital nursery, bassinets, I should say, books for libraries, host citizenship courts, which we do not do anymore. As many of you know, citizenship courts used to be once a month in Chatham-Kent. Today, all citizenship courts are held in larger centers unless there is a special request to have it here. And IODE members we used to host the citizenship courts and provide refreshments, and we would give each new citizen a certificate and a small flag. Remembrance Day services, which we attend, adopted veteran at Westminster Hospital, and a senior without family at a local nursing home, to name a few projects. Today, the chapter grants a $500 scholarship to a graduating student at each secondary school, sponsors Kids Club at the Chatham-Kent Museum, along with their Imagination Inc. program. And as a lot of you also know, that the museum, which would be considered a school trip, and so many school trips are not funded anymore by the Board of Education, we support this gift to the museum so that school children can still have the experience of the programs at the Chatham-Kent Museum. It is their history. We sponsor free skating at local arenas, the annual Children's Water Festival, the Chatham-Kent Student Nutrition Program, the Chatham-Kent Hospice, and the Children's Treatment Center, along with many emergency requests. This past week, and I don't know whether Marianne can talk, our president is online with this meeting. This past week, we have had emergency requests for milk and muffins to be given to a Wednesday program for people on the street, a drop-in snack and meal program. And we also have provided ROC, which is a Chatham-Kent organization that gives snacks or takes snacks and sandwiches to people who are living on the street. This was 2 emergency requests that we had that we can support. Early fundraisers were Shoe Shine Day on King Street, and there is a picture, and prominent in the one picture on the right-hand side is Joan Clement, who is still a member of our chapter, and the girls are shown shining shoes. And I understand that they made $116 for one weekend of shining shoes on King Street, and it was near the post office and also at the cenotaph. They also made Christmas cookies, 250 boxes, 5,000 cookies, which they sold for $10 a box. They did a Christmas snowball dance, and they did door decorations for Christmas also to raise money. More recently, the chapter has been active with the Architectural Heritage Walk, which was a historical walk that we did from 1984 to 2001. And currently we do the Christmas House Tour, which is a source of major funds to support our budget and the programs that we support in Chatham-Kent, along with bingo funds from membership in the Riverview Bingo Charity Association, which we do also. The Christmas tour is probably not going to happen this year due to the public health restrictions of the pandemic. And we certainly look forward to doing it again. We know it's a popular fundraiser for people in Chatham-Kent and outside our area too. Cindy? The one picture on the last slide was a letter from a student. We have a wonderful, I wish we could read all the letters to you from students that when they were supporting a school in Labrador. And this was at St. Lunaire, White Bay. And this particular letter is signed by Patsy Pilgrim. And she says, I am writing you a few lines to thank you for the package of books you sent us. We will enjoy reading those books during the library periods. Every time I read one of those books, I'll think of you. Another letter that was really cute, and it was addressed to Mrs. Joseph O'Neill, who of course is Colleen O'Neill, who is a retired member of our chapter and still active when we, for special events that we do. And this student said, Dear Madam, we thank you for the books you sent us for reading. We have library hours 11:15 to 11:45. We have our library recess Mondays and Thursdays, and we have a room for putting our library books in. Recess, we go out and get them. We enjoy reading your books. Our library is green and white. My teacher's name is Mrs. P. Pilgrim, which I wonder if was the mother of the previous letter writer. And the principal's name is Mrs. D. Jeans. The porch is blue and the clothes room is blue. I am in grade 2 this year. Sometimes we have silent reading. Goodbye, Pauline Saunders. The letter from Mr. Williamson. Mr. Williamson was a veteran at Westminster Hospital in London. And I gather from the number of letters that we received from him that he was there for quite a long time and had no family, but of course his family became the patients that were in the hospital with him. And this particular letter is, I am writing these few lines to thank you for the presents I received. I will say, I am completely at a loss to explain how I feel as a result of your generosity to a person who is almost a complete stranger to you. And ladies of your chapter, I can safely say that I've never before received so many presents, and hope that you will explain to the other ladies my sincere appreciation and wish you and your chapter the best of health and happiness. Frank W. Williamson, 126905, Unit 1, Westminster Hospital, London, Ontario. And I guess the last slide is us. This was at our annual, a number of our members were away. And this was at our annual meeting in February. And the ladies in the chapter are myself and Diane Pinkerton, Kathy Rio, Marianne Johnstone, who is our president, Michelle Rapusky, myself, Jean Pardo, Linda Greiner, who is the IODE Ontario president, Joanne Hendry Story, Nancy Reisner, and Donna Cuppers, a few missing as away. And that's our chapter. Thank you for letting me tell our story. It's certainly a privilege to belong to such a special organization. And I know that from our members, we are a close family. We don't seem like very many people, but we certainly have a very close relationship and really passionate about the support projects that we are involved in, and certainly respect each other as Canadian women. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. That was very interesting. I'm actually amazed at the amount of support and how many activities and community events and projects that your group is involved with. It seems there's a lot going on for a very small group. So the passion is very clear with all the activities and the support that you do in the community. It's wonderful. Now, before we went on, you mentioned to me about the John Rhodes article. Did you want to maybe just mention that to the rest of the folks too? And by the way, we did turn on the mics for everybody. So instead of typing out your question or your comment, you can unmute yourself and you can actually speak yourself and ask your question or comment that way. But if you're able to share a bit of that information that you mentioned to me about the John Rhodes article, people might be interested in that as well.
John Rhodes, yes, I would love to read it, but it describes the battle that he was killed in, which is really sad when you think of how young he was and what a terrible time they had during the First World War in this taking on the Battle of Arras. And I'll just read part of this. Our first objective was a German trench about 4,000 meters ahead. And we reached that point with hardly a casualty. There we waited and rested a couple of hours. Gann, having placed his platoon in shell holes in 100 yards ahead of the trench. He then called me to come. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading. He then called me to come to him and crawl to the particular shell hole he was occupying. And we lit cigarettes and talked together about an hour, not about the scrap, but home and our mothers. It was drizzling rain and we were both very cold. But we were in good spirits, and I remember Gann laughing and saying, "We will all laugh at this someday, Paul, when we get back home again and sit around the old table again with Mother feeding us up." About noon, we received orders to advance again, and our company was detailed to take a ruined French village, Guamapi, lying in a little valley ahead of us. In going through this, we were caught in a perfect hail of machine gun fire, bullets and shells. I was knocked down by a bullet which hit me over the heart, but when in some miraculous way struck my steel shaving mirror, which I happened to have in my breast pocket. However, I managed to get up again, but it threw me back again about three or 4 minutes behind Gann, who was among those who were killed. It was like receiving the news of the death of my own brother. And at first I couldn't realize it. It came out of the blue. He was instantly killed and suffered not, thank heaven, no pain. The next day, Lieutenant Turnbull was shot through the chest and spent the next 4 weeks unable to move. Lieutenant Garnet Bracken rests, I believe, in the British cemetery at Guamapi. This was it was from John Rhodes, who is the author, as you know, of many books of local history. And it's a Chatham this week, and it was November the 11th, 2009, that he wrote this article.
And now you also mentioned the Gathering Our Heroes website. I'll have to be honest that we send people to that website constantly. So that was a huge undertaking and a partnership that you participated in. And there's a lot of genealogists and family historians and even just plain old historians that utilize that website. So it's one of the better ones in Kent County. So if anyone has Kent County military that they're looking for, that's the website to check out. I didn't know if you had mentioned that Marion might like to say something. I don't know if she did. Marion, you're more than welcome if you wanted to say hi to everybody, or if you had a comment. And if not, that's fine too. Not everybody's comfortable.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, it's Mary Ann here. Yes, I'm the current president. Sandra was the past president, and we kind of shifted back and forth between 3 or 4 of us. And yeah, I enjoyed hearing Sandra's history again. I didn't know a lot of it. Both Sandra and I have been members for, I think it's 36 or 7 years. I forget, Sandra. Anyway, we are an active group, and we raise over $20,000 a year to give back to our community. And for a small number of ladies, I know there are 13 or 14 of us right now, we work hard and have fun.
So how would somebody join your group? Is there a particular, form or protocol that if somebody's interested in volunteering or assisting?
There's no protocol. You're invited to come out. If you can talk to us, or sometimes we get members who help at the house tour, that kind of way, or friends of other friends, and we invite you to come out. We try to invite people when we have like a dinner meeting or a fun night going on, and if they're interested, then we actually have a formal little ceremony, and they get a badge, and they become an unofficial member.
Nice. That's great. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We truly appreciate it, and you saying a few words as well. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Is there any questions in the chat box, Kim?
Just one from Valerie earlier on said, "Hi, Sandy. Too bad we have to do this way." So
Valerie and I work together at Red Cross. Good goer of movies too.
Well, that's great.
Oh, it was our pleasure to, for you to give us the opportunity to present our chapter to your society, and we certainly value and respect the work that you are doing to find out about people in Chatham-Kent, and also I imagine your own families, which you are probably very heavily involved with too. Family is so important, as we have found out in the current restrictions. So thank you for letting us tell our story.
You're more than welcome. And it was interesting when you were reading the article from the young man in the newspaper, how he was mentioning thinking of home and and their moms. So right. Even those military strong, tough soldiers, they were still over there fighting, thinking of their moms. And, with Mother's Day this weekend, I think that was a nice little, applaud to the mothers out there.
Sort of brought a few tears to my eyes. Yeah. That's very poignant, that's for sure.
For sure. Well, that's great, ladies. So thank you so much. Unless you have anything else you'd like to share with us. I don't see any more questions in the question box. So that's great. We truly appreciate you spending time with us tonight. And it went well. You did great.
Thank you, Cindy, and Kim also for all the assistance of the technology. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Oh, Nancy just said thank you for an interesting presentation.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Okay, well, we'll sign off now, and all the best to everybody, and hopefully we can see people in person sooner rather than later. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.